Hi everybody, and welcome to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. In this video, we've got two stories and both of them come with updates. They are both from the subreddit Am I the A-hole? The first one has 3 short updates and the second one has 1 big update. So like always, if you want to navigate through the different parts of the video, you can always use the timestamps right below it. Now, let's get started with the first story. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole? And it's by user PrudentCoat8988. Am I the a-hole for not quitting my job over colleague's crush? I, 32 female, live with my husband, 44 male, and work in research. My primary colleague, 30 male, and I have worked together for nearly 2 years on a major project involving significant intellectual and labor contributions from both of us. The project is expected to span at least another 2 years and is vital to both of our careers. Not long ago, my colleague confessed to me that he is and has been infatuated or in love with me for pretty much the duration. It took place via a long email that was written after an evening of drinking. This was totally unexpected. In retrospect, there may have been some signs, but nothing that wouldn't just as easily be accounted for by a considerate personality. Shortly after this confession, I came to my husband with the issue. I wanted to get his advice about the situation and showed him the drafts which I'd composed to organize my thoughts on the matter. They stated unequivocally that I'm not interested in a romantic relationship and hope these feelings won't complicate our work together. I was again surprised at my husband's reaction. He seemed offended to think I must have invited my colleague's affections and that I should immediately quit my job, as in put in notice tomorrow. I was so taken aback that my immediate reaction was to laugh, snort at this suggestion, which was probably a mistake. That would be utterly disastrous for my career and isn't an option I'm willing to consider. I'd greatly prefer the entire scenario had never happened, as a difficult and lengthy project hangs in the balance. But I have no real concern at this point about my colleague forcing the issue or letting it compromise our work. It seemed like an intoxicated getting my feelings off my chest. I'll need to put a lot of thought and caution into how I proceed with the work dynamic, but abandoning our project isn't even on the table. About a week has passed. My husband has been alternating between irate and the silent treatment and suggested several times that I should move out of the house to be with my new spouse. Today, I swung by the house on my lunch break and found the locks changed and my luggage on the patio. I have been blocked on his work number and cell. Obviously, he cannot possibly intend for me to really move out and is just pulling what I absolutely believe to be an a-hole-ish power sulk. But seeing how seriously he's taking this has my doubts up. Maybe I was ultimately too uncompromising when I refused to even entertain quitting my job for the sake of conversation and his feelings, and to shut the idea down so abruptly. Am I the a-hole? Well, OP, in my opinion, no, you are not the a-hole. If anything, I'd say that your co-worker writing you that email makes him an a-hole because you didn't need to know that. Those are his feelings, his problem, and he needs to deal with it, not you. And of course, the way that your husband reacted to the whole situation by changing the logs and kicking you out and telling you that you had to quit your job, well yeah, that makes him the a-hole. The thing is, your husband should trust you, and if somebody has a crush on you, well, how much can you do about it? If people would have to quit their jobs every time a co-worker would have some sort of crush on them, well then turnover would be very high, I would assume. So yeah, OP, I don't think you're the a-hole, and I do think the way that your husband reacted is a big red flag that you should take a look at. But what about you guys? What do you guys think? Let me know your opinion in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Silver Flame says, not the a-hole. Late to the party, but one item seems key. Quote, I was again surprised at my husband's reaction. He seemed offended to think I must have invited my colleague's affections. End quote. That's a fundamental trust issue. If you are sure that you did nothing intentional to invite your colleague's infatuation, then your husband should trust you. That he does not is not a great sign. And in any case, no, you shouldn't quit your job. You are not the a-hole because you're cautious about potentially throwing away your career for a situation you can walk away once the project is done. Until then, a-holes are the ones making over-dramatic demands and not being able to hold their alcohol. And OP responds, "This is actually the one nagging question in my mind, which is leading me to push for a rational conversation before calling my lawyer and exploring that path. As I suspected no such affections from colleague in the past, I was on personally friendly terms with him. I have attended a casual holiday get-together at his house on one occasion, gone to dinner in a group with colleagues including him to celebrate achievements, and made myself available to take calls outside of work hours. My husband may be reviewing instances like that and wondering if there isn't more to the story. In any case, I'm shocked enough by my husband's outburst to meet him in a neutral place to gauge his attitude before returning to the house, and I'm going to insist on couples therapy as an absolute must before moving forward." Pumpkin DG says, "Info. It sounds like he is insecure about this. Has something happened in the past to where he would just jump to this extreme? Not the a-hole, and I applaud you for bringing it to your significant other. That was very respectful of your relationship, which leaves me wondering why he would just snap." And OP responds, "The issue of jealousy isn't totally new, but this is the first time it's come to such a head. In the first year of our relationship, we were both still casually seeing other people, which caused some tension. That aside, I guess the insecurity could be due to how recent our marriage was, or the way I brushed aside his concerns initially." One Mike Nation says, "Info. How did you handle the email sent from your colleague? I agree quitting isn't an option, but it's been a week. What happened?" And OP responds, "The next day at work, colleague's disposition seemed identical to what it was pre-confession. Polite, invested in work, and observing appropriate boundaries. So I haven't mentioned it in real life. It seems too abrupt. I figure I have a little time to draft an appropriate reply, as I'm generally not as attentive to my personal inbox as my work one, and his email was sent to my personal. Ultimately, I ended up being distracted from the colleague situation by the husband situation, but I feel I definitely need to make a response within the next 48 hours or so." To clarify, colleague was out drinking alone and sent me the email while I was at home. I'm weighing my options regarding HR. My company takes any kind of harassment very seriously, and while I don't want to jump the gun, I agree I might ultimately end up needing a mediator. I'm somewhat concerned about the possible extent of colleagues drinking and how it might affect our work down the road. For him to have written such an out-of-character email. Some additional information from OP's responses. "The stress I'm under at work is enormous. My field is extremely competitive, and this is a make or break type of project. So I think my instinct here is to people please and sweep as much under the rug as possible due to my limited bandwidth to deal with more stress or anything which might complicate the project. However, as many have pointed out, the project has already been complicated, and the cat is out of the bag with my husband's issues. The house is actually in my name, inherited from my dad before I married. The luggage he packed contained only some random things, a couple of suits, miscellaneous items from my nightstand. This makes me believe he's just chucking an outside tantrum instead of expecting me to actually vacate. I think I'm ultimately shell-shocked at having two unexpected emotional bombs dropped by two people close to me in 1 week. Yes, I'm seeing a pattern of controlling behavior and regulation of my social circle. Friends who are too immature for me to spend time with. Family members who are overbearing and demands made. This situation and thread have been a wake-up call. I'm getting a first look at the dark side of my husband, and reviewing the circumstances around his first divorce, infidelity on her part. I expect he's either developed a complex about the topic or things didn't play out exactly the way he told me. Well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole, and we gained a lot more context to this story. Now, the fact that he was cheated on in his first marriage does kind of explain his reaction, but it absolutely does not excuse it. He is still an a-hole. And on top of that, he tried to evict OP from her own house, which is simply ridiculous. In any case, OP has given us 3 updates, so let's continue with that to see what happened next. Update 1. Hubby called me. Long story short, he's been extremely anxious each day when I leave for work, and buckled from that pressured today. I'm welcomed back once I've quit my job, which is still obviously unacceptable. I am considering taking a week of accrued paid leave, which will hopefully result in an adult conversation with my husband, as well as coming to a decision about how to best handle my colleague. That failing, I'm hearing the word lawyer loud and clear throughout these comments. I'm grateful for all the support and perspective. Update 2. I ended up calling my sister, 38 female, something I avoided initially because I didn't want to stir the pot by involving family members who are already disliked by my husband. I'm currently with her and my cousin, 35 male, who are both supportive. Our plan is to call a locksmith tomorrow to regain access to the property. Husband can ruminate with friends or a hotel for the present. For my cousin to collect some important things of mine from the house, and for me to stay with my sister for a few days while I take a hard look at my situation and options. I'm not set on divorce at this point, but I definitely need to reassert some very basic boundaries before exploring further discussion with my husband. Thank you, strangers on Reddit, for helping me emerge from the emotional haze with some clarity. Update 3. Enormous thanks for all the private messages after the comments were locked. I am a little overwhelmed with life in general right now, so I haven't replied to anyone, but I wanted to update and let it be known that I am safe and well. My husband tried to bar my cousin from entering the family home to retrieve my things, which escalated to a physical confrontation. The police arrived and both my husband and cousin were made to leave the premises. My sister and I changed the locks the next day to secure the house, and I'm staying with family for a little while I plan my next move, which will, in all likelihood, be a divorce. Thanks again to all who've shared feedback and concern. Well, OP, I think you're making the right decision. Your husband needs to work on his issues, or maybe your future ex-husband will have to work on his issues once this is done. In any case, I wish you all the best in the future with your project and your life. So take care, OP, and thanks for sharing. Now, let's move on to the next post. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user IZReserve6995. Am I the a-hole for deleting my friend's wedding photos in front of them? I'm not really a photographer, I'm a dog groomer. I take lots of photos of dogs all day to put on my Facebook and Instagram. It's my thing, if that makes sense. A cut and a photo with every appointment. I very seldom shoot things other than dogs, even if I have a nice setup. A friend got married a few days ago, and wanting to save money asked if I'd shoot it for them. I told him it's not really my forte, but he convinced me by saying he didn't care if they were perfect. They were on a shoestring budget and I agreed to shoot it for $250, which is nothing for a 10-hour event. On the day of, I'm driving around following the bride as she goes from appointment to appointment before the ceremony, taking photos along the way. I shoot the ceremony itself, and during the reception I'm shooting speeches and people mingling. I started around 11 AM and was due to finish around 7:30 PM. Around 5 PM, food is being served and I was told I cannot stop to eat because I need to be a photographer. In fact, they didn't save me a spot at any table. I'm getting tired and at this point kinda regretting doing this for next to nothing. It's also unbelievably hot. The venue is an old Veterans Legion and it's like 110 Fahrenheit, 43 Celsius, and there's no air conditioning. I told the groom I need to take off for 20 minutes to get something to eat and drink. There's no open bar or anything. I can't even get water and my 2 water bottles are long empty. He tells me I need to either be a photographer or leave without pay. With the heat, being hungry, being generally annoyed at the circumstances, I asked if he was sure, and he said yes. So I deleted all the photos I took in front of him and took off saying I'm not his photographer anymore. If I was to be paid $250, honestly, at that point I would have paid $250 just for a glass of cold water and somewhere to sit for 5 minutes. Was I the a-hole? They went right on their honeymoon and they've been off all social media, but a lot of people have been posting on their wall asking about photos with 0 responses. No, OP, you are not the a-hole. That groom is the a-hole and additionally a butthead. He was being absolutely ridiculous, making you just take pictures for 10 hours straight without any kind of rest or food or water in a day that was 43 degrees Celsius, 110 Fahrenheit. That's just crazy. And his idiotic ultimatum, well, you called him out and that's that. There are no pictures. It's his fault, not yours. You're not the a-hole, he is. So what do you guys think? What is your judgment in this situation? Let me know down in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they had to say. Abby Burb says, not the a-hole. They took you off the guest list for this without mentioning it to you in advance. You went in with the expectation of $250 to take high quality pictures, while also being a guest at their event, including a place to sit, eat and drink. And realistically, you did nothing but follow the groom's suggestion. Either continue being a photographer or forfeit your $250. What did the groom think that entailed? He would get that work for free? Play stupid game and win stupid prizes. I would seriously reconsider this friendship. 6UF says, not the a-hole. That sounds horrible. I understand making rash decisions like this and then regretting them, but in my opinion, that was not an a-hole move. Nobody who gives ultimatums can then fault people for choosing one of the two options presented. Like, what kind of logic is that? Groom, OP, you either choose one or two. OP, I choose two. Groom, shocked Pikachu face. Tangled says, not the a-hole. I work weddings as a videographer and I insist on a meal and a break. Regardless, I would never film guests eating. It's not enjoyable for the guests and the footage is meh. Additional information from OP's comments. I was originally just going as a guest. I had a table and food order. I RSVP'd with my food choice. But I guess I was changed from a guest to the work and didn't need any of that anymore? I am friends with his wife, and by association, he became my friend too. I haven't known him as long, but really, they were both on low priority friends list, if that makes sense. We see each other at functions and that's really it. In retrospect, I wasn't thinking straight because now I've nothing to show for my wasted time. I just had to get out of there and make a point before I did. But still, in that same amount of time, I would have made 4 to 5 times the amount they were going to pay me by grooming dogs. Okay, well, the community absolutely backs OP that they are not the a-hole. So let's move on with the update to see what happened after this. Immediately after the wedding, they went off for their honeymoon. They went to a cottage up north and didn't use social media for a week. In that time, they got lots of requests for photos on Facebook, and I didn't reply to anyone because, to me, this was done and I didn't want the headache of dealing with the fallback. I didn't know a lot of these people, it's their circle of friends, so I thought it was best they handled it. The bride contacted me when they returned and asked me my side of the story. I don't know when the groom spilled the beans, but he wasn't truthful about it. He told her I had camera problems and lost the photos. I told her plainly what happened and told her that while I felt guilty, it's no way to treat someone doing them a favor. She wasn't in the know about any of this and asked if there was any way we could mend this. We got to talking and I've agreed to do a reshoot for some photos later in the season. She wants some photos of just them in an outdoors shoot. Photos of the rings, some artsy fartsy shots, and that's it. She offered me the original $250 and I agreed under the condition I bail at word 1 of crap from either of them. As for the original photos, I offered to bring my SD card to a place that could attempt to recover them, but at their cost, and she declined. Word did get out on social media about some of this, and we agreed to sweep it under the rug and try to diffuse or play down what happened. Of the few comments I did read, they were wholly against me because the story is twisted with the "her camera died" narrative the groom spun. I'm upset, but not enough to make a big deal of it. None of them even know my name. I did make 2 interesting connections though. The DJ was privy to the situation. He was the person I vented to originally, and he asked if I'd shoot their band at an upcoming event. Additionally, the minister asked if I'd like to shoot some promotional images of his church and choir. I'm not sure if I'm cut out for anything but pet stuff, but it's nice to have got something out of this ordeal at least. Well OP, no big fallout, so that's good. The only thing that called my attention was when the bride asked you for your side of the story. That just tells me she knows that her husband is a butthead. Or else she would have gone straight into why did your camera die or something like that. In any case, it's over and things are okay. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I certainly did reading them to you. So if you did, then go ahead and give the video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and become a member of our Discord community that just keeps growing and it is fantastic. All of the relevant links are in the video description below, so be sure to check them out. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. It really does mean a lot to me that you guys enjoy this content, so thank you once again. And having said all that, I will see you guys in the next video.